At its peak, Singer Manufacturing Company operated in more countries than most governments did. Its brand was recognized in villages in sub-Saharan Africa, in fishing communities in Japan, in the mountain towns of rural Scotland, and in the tenements of New York City, simultaneously in the same decade, in the same catalog year. Singer achieved this not with advertising, not with government contracts, and not with a technological monopoly. Its core patent expired in 1877. It achieved it with a sales infrastructure so complete that competitors could not replicate it even when they could legally copy the machine. The man who started it was Isaac Merritt Singer, a machinist, an actor, and an accidental industrialist who understood one thing with total clarity. The best product in the world fails if the person who needs it cannot afford to own it. The machine had to reach the woman. For 100 years, nothing stopped it. Then everything did. For most of human history, every piece of clothing worn by every person on earth was sewn by hand. A shirt took days. A dress took longer. The women who made them, in homes, in tenements, in the back rooms of shops on streets that had no name, did this work from childhood until their hands gave out. No machine existed to replace them. No machine had been seriously attempted. Then one was. Several, in fact. By 1845, at least 3 American inventors had filed patents covering mechanical sewing mechanisms. The machines existed in prototype. They existed in demonstration rooms. They existed in the technical literature of the emerging industrial press. They did not exist in homes. They did not exist in the hands of the women who needed them. The gap between those two facts was the entire problem, and for the first 5 years of the sewing machine's existence, nobody had thought seriously about how to close it. Isaac Merritt Singer was not the person most qualified to solve that problem. He was not an engineer, not an industrialist, not a businessman with capital and a market thesis. He was a machinist by training and a traveling actor by preference. 2 careers built on the same foundation, reading what an audience needed and giving it to them before they thought to ask. Born in 1811 in Oswego, New York, the son of a German immigrant millwright, Singer left home at 12 and spent his 20s moving between machine shops and theater companies with the specific restlessness of a man who had not yet found the problem large enough to hold his attention. He was competent with machines. He was charismatic in front of people. Neither quality had yet produced anything durable. In 1850, that changed. Not through vision, through a file, a Boston machine shop, Washington Street, autumn 1850. A Laro and Blodgett sewing machine sits disassembled on the work surface, brought in for repair, unreliable in the way all early sewing machines were unreliable. Singer runs his thumb along the shuttle track, feeling where the thread catches and stops. He does not ask for a schematic. He picks up a file from the bench beside him and begins reshaping the guide channel. The shop owner asks him to stop. Singer keeps filing. The mechanism is not wrong in principle. It is wrong in execution. The gap between those two things is 11 days of work and 1 patent filed in 1851 that will eventually put his name on more machines than any other in history. But the patent was not the achievement. The patent was the starting point. Isaac Singer did not invent the sewing machine. He invented the version that worked. The difference between those two things was the entire business. The machine Singer patented in 1851 sewed continuously without stopping to reset the thread, the specific operational failure that had made every previous machine impractical for sustained domestic use. It was faster. It was more reliable. It was, by the engineering standard of its moment, genuinely superior. It cost $125 at retail. The average American working woman earned $40 a year. No distribution system existed to reach her. No financing mechanism allowed her to bridge the gap between what she earned and what the machine cost. No sales infrastructure had mapped the domestic spaces, the tenements, the farmhouses, the back rooms, where the machine would actually be used. The machine existed, yet it sat in demonstration rooms while the women who needed it went home and sewed by hand. One fact remained unchanged. One problem still had no answer. No credit, no salesforce, no road to the customer. In 1851, Singer took on a partner, a lawyer named Edward Clark, who understood the commercial mechanics of the problem with the same precision Singer applied to the mechanical ones. Singer understood what the machine could do. Clark understood what the machine had to become. Their disagreements began immediately. They were constant, specific, and productive in the way that disagreements between people with complementary blind spots tend to be. Singer wanted to build. Clark wanted to sell. Neither could do the other's job. Neither could succeed without the other doing it. Elias Howe held the foundational sewing machine patent from 1846 and pursued infringement claims against every manufacturer in the market. Singer paid into the resulting patent pool, royalties to Howe, shared licensing among the key holders, rather than fight a legal battle whose outcome was uncertain. The payment was operationally painful, yet it bought Singer the one resource that mattered more than legal exclusivity: time. Time to build something competitors couldn't copy even when the patents finally expired. That expiration was coming. 1877 was the year. Every structural advantage Singer built before that date had to survive without legal protection afterward. The machine had to reach the woman. In 1851, that problem had no solution. Singer had a patent, a partner who understood money, and a retail price that placed the machine beyond the reach of almost everyone who needed it. He started from there. Edward Clark solved the price problem in 1856 with 5 words: $5 down, 3 monthly. The hire purchase installment plan was not a marketing device. It was a structural re-engineering of who could own the machine. A working-class woman earning $4 a week could not produce $125 in a single transaction. She could produce $3 a month. Clark understood that the distance between those two facts was not a character failure. It was a financing problem. He solved it. Sales doubled within a year, then doubled again. A tenement apartment, Lower Manhattan, 1858. 2 rooms, 1 window, a family's entire domestic operation conducted at a single table. A Singer demonstrator, a woman trained specifically for this work, threads the machine, positions a piece of cloth, and runs a seam in under 4 seconds. The woman watching does not speak. She reaches out and runs her finger along the seam. She has been sewing that seam by hand for 20 years. Her finger tells her immediately that the machine's seam is stronger than hers. The monthly payment is $3. She earns $4 a week taking in laundry. She signs the agreement before the demonstrator has packed the sample case. This was the sales model. Not showrooms, not hardware merchants, women demonstrating the machine in the domestic spaces where it would actually be used, churches, parlors, tenement kitchens, to the women who would use it. The approach matched the product's context exactly. Adoption accelerated in a way no retail channel could have produced. Clark added one more mechanism: the trade-in. Singer accepted any machine. Competitor machines, broken machines, machines of no practical value, as partial payment toward a new Singer. It cleared the barrier of existing ownership, accelerated replacement cycles, and flooded the second-hand market with non-Singer machines that Singer had already been paid for. Operationally brutal, commercially precise, the machine had to reach the woman. The installment plan was not a financing product. It was the answer to the only question that had ever mattered. In 1861, Isaac Singer retired to Europe with a personal fortune and an increasingly complicated domestic situation involving multiple families across several states. Clark bought him out. Singer departed. The company continued without interruption, which said everything about how completely Clark had built an institution that no longer required its founder. In 1867, Singer opened its first overseas factory in Glasgow, Scotland. Import tariffs made European manufacturing cheaper than transatlantic shipping. The logic was entirely commercial. But the Glasgow factory was also the first American manufacturing facility ever built on European soil, a structural commitment to international markets that no American company had attempted at that scale. By 1880, Singer had retail, offices in Russia, Germany, France, Brazil, Australia, and India. The distribution network had outgrown the patent that started it, which was necessary because 1877 had already arrived and the patent was gone. The patent expired in 1877. Dozens of manufacturers entered the market within 5 years. The machine that Singer had protected legally since 1851 could now be built by anyone with a factory and a lathe. Prices collapsed across the industry. The competitive protection Singer had spent 26 years building was gone in a single calendar year. Singer's response was not to defend the patent position. That was finished. It was to build faster and cheaper than any competitor could match. The Elizabethport, New Jersey factory expanded until it was the largest sewing machine manufacturing facility on Earth. Volume replaced exclusivity as the competitive moat. It worked for a generation. But the more consequential response to the patent expiry was already in place before 1877 arrived. The distribution network. 3,000 retail depots across Russia alone by 1900. Offices in Siberia, Central Asia, the Caucasus. A sales force operating in territories that had no reliable road infrastructure, no established retail trade, and no prior experience of American consumer products. Singer had mapped and entered those markets anyway, because the women in them still sewed by hand and the machines still had to reach them. Russia was Singer's single largest market in the world by 1900, larger than the United States, larger than Britain. The operational footprint was unprecedented for any American company in any foreign territory. A Singer retail depot, Saratov, Russia, winter 1916. A single room on the main commercial street, the Singer trademark oval painted on the inside of the front window, frosted with ice on the outside. The depot manager logs inventory against a ledger while a customer examines a machine on the demonstration table. Outside, a military transport moves through the street. The sound of it entering the room briefly before the door closes again. The ledger numbers are good. The depot has been in this building for 11 years. He does not know that in 12 months the building will not belong to Singer, or to him, or to anyone who answers to the same chain of command he does. The oval will still be on the window. Nobody will bother to remove it for years. In 1917, the revolution terminated the Russian operation entirely. 3,000 retail depots, manufacturing equipment, accounts receivable accumulated across decades. The Soviet government took all of it without compensation. Singer absorbed the loss and continued. The depression compressed consumer demand a decade later. The installment plan that had driven Singer's growth for 70 years became the mechanism through which its losses were collected at scale. Customers defaulted. Repossession operations ran continuously. The company contracted. Then World War II. Then, in the 1950s, Brother and Janome. Singer had survived a revolution, 2 world wars, and the collapse of its largest single market. What it had not yet survived was a competitor who could build the same machine for less money and deliver it through the same stores. Brother and Janome did not defeat Singer with a better machine. They defeated it with the same machine, built at lower cost, in factories Singer could not match on price without dismantling the infrastructure that had made it dominant for a century. Singer's response was diversification, aerospace components, business machines, furniture. The company that had spent 100 years doing one thing with total precision began doing many things with diminishing focus. In 1963, Singer reincorporated as a diversified manufacturing conglomerate. The sewing machine division was still the largest revenue contributor. It was no longer the strategic identity of the institution. 100 years of brand clarity began to blur. The Kilbowie factory in Clydebank, Scotland, successor to the original Glasgow operation, once the largest sewing machine factory in the world, ran at a fraction of its peak capacity by the mid-1970s. At its height, the plant had employed 16,000 workers and produced 13,000 machines per week. By 1975, the number that mattered was 4,500. That was how many jobs would not exist on Monday. The last shift manager walks the production line after the final whistle. He moves from station to station in the order he has followed for 22 years, checking that the machines are powered down correctly. The same check, the same sequence, the same hands. The line is quiet in a way it has never been during his time here, not the quiet of a break or a maintenance stop, the permanent quiet of a thing that is finished. He does not know what to do with his hands. Above the factory entrance, the Singer oval sign is still lit. Someone will turn it off later. Nobody has been assigned to do it yet. Singer's manufacturing capability was progressively outsourced through the 1980s, then licensed, then sold. The brand name was retained. The production infrastructure was not. By the 1990s, Singer sewing machines were built under license by Asian manufacturers with no operational connection to Elizabethport, to Kilbowie, or to the woman in the Manhattan tenement who ran her finger along a machine seam in 1858 and signed a $3 per month agreement before the demonstrator had packed the sample case. In 1999, Singer Company filed for bankruptcy. Singer had invented the installment plan, the direct sales force, and the multinational factory. Every consumer company that came after it used at least one of those tools. None of them were sewing machine companies. The machine had to reach the woman. For 100 years, Singer built everything required to make that happen: the credit, the sales force, the factories, the global network. When the machine could no longer justify the infrastructure could not save itself. The machine had to reach the woman.